Hi everyone, welcome to TGIF, another Friday, another episode. Have you heard of this term called confidential computing? I'm sure you must have, but if you have not, watch this episode. And yes, if you look at Gartner's 2021 prediction, privacy enhancing computation is one of the key trends, and that's where confidential computing plays a critical role. And of course, Gartner also predicts that by 2025, 50% of large organizations will embrace privacy enhancing computation techniques. So here we are talking about this topic, and I'm glad to welcome Suresh Kumar, who joined MTC recently as a technical architect specializing in security. So no better person to talk about security. So Suresh, welcome to TGIF.
Hello Sandeep, thanks for having me on TGIF.
Perfect. So Suresh, quick question to you. Before we get to specifics, help us understand what is confidential computing.
Sure Sandeep. So to understand confidential computing, probably I can draw a parallel to how data management or data lifecycle management happens. Yeah. So when you look at data management, irrespective of where it is, right? It is about encrypting the data at rest and encrypting the data while in transit. So these are two fundamentals which everyone is aware of. Where the confidential computing basically comes is on the third paradigm, which is the data encryption while in use. So confidential computing is basically about ensuring data encryption while data is being used. So that's where it comes into play.
Wonderful. So data at rest, data in transit is something which you're aware of. In use is definitely an important topic. Now, on the similar trail, one thing which probably is a dominant, I would say, jargon used is trusted execution environment or a secure enclave. That's what we call about, right? So help us understand that a bit, because of course, as we go along, getting specifics of confidential computing, it becomes important for us to understand this term really well. So go for it.
Yeah, so thanks for that question. Actually, this trusted computing has been there for a while, and Microsoft has kind of invested very, very significantly in this space in the last few years. Now, before we go into what happens in the confidential computing on the trusted computing side, one thing fundamental that we all are aware of today is how we are able to build trust on every single machine or a PC on which we compute, right? I'll take an example of a laptop that we have today. Now, to build trust on that laptop, we basically depend on something which a chip manufacturer, basically puts on the hardware. The chip basically, which has certain keys which are tamper-proof and it's immutable, and that basically gives us the ability to encrypt data using the key encryption methodologies that are there and widely used. So the same concept basically goes in this trust model as well. So with the partnership that we have with the leading chip manufacturers like Intel, like AMD, we are able to use them in the VMs that we spin off in the cloud. And with that, we enable these trust modules. These trust modules basically gives the ability to prevent some ransomware or malware that basically runs during a boot or a runtime process.
Now, Suresh, as Microsoft, we've announced quite a few service offerings in the cloud to complement trustworthy computing as well as confidential computing. A glimpse of what is that people can use today would help before we get going.
Absolutely, Sandeep. So what we have today is general availability of some of the partnership that we've made, by which we are able to use some of those chipsets in the VMs that which we spin off in the cloud. So outside of the VMs, what we have today is general availability of Azure SQL always encrypted option with secure enclaves. Yeah. Which we will dive deep in our upcoming sessions. The other things that we have is on the confidential interface for machine learning, and then the Azure IoT Edge with enclaves, which is currently in preview and coming to be general availability pretty soon. And the last but not the least is the Azure Confidential Ledger, which basically gives auditing capability, and that too immutable auditing capability. So that's something built on the blockchain technology.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Suresh. I think that was a crisp narrative on what is confidential computing, also what is it we offer as Microsoft. For enterprises looking at embracing privacy enhancing computation techniques, this is what we have on Azure. So with that, thanks Suresh for joining in, and for listeners today, thank you so much for joining in. Happy Friday and a wonderful weekend ahead. Bye-bye.